I want to tell you about something that's coming. So this is an opportunity for you to see something over the horizon. So I'm kind of warning you. You can decide whether you trust my 20 years of experience of always doing this or not, but don't be a dummy. Come on. It's all based around a word called contemporaneous. So I'm going to read the definition out of a dictionary. Happening in the same period of time, and it's part of the word contemporary. So it's belonging to the present time, okay? And how that is important to you is this. I see all of the taxing agencies requiring that you be able to support that the documentation was collected in real time when it actually happened. Because if you're going to use emails as documentation, it has a timestamp on it. So instead of letting you bring a bunch of receipts in a shoebox and assembling it all later and then going back and getting penalty of perjury statements or going back, and it's my recollection, you know, in that period of time we had this meeting, it's a little weaker. And all the taxing agencies are going to begin to attack you now and in the future on the fact that you're giving them self-serving documents. Well, of course it's self-serving. A tax plan or a tax program or all of your documentation is self-serving because you're trying to legally avoid, or in the cases of IRS, mitigate your taxes. So if anyone says to you that's self-serving, just say, of course it is. You know, that's the answer to it. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is that instead of having to go through your receipts as you prepare your tax return and go back and get penalty of perjuries of statements from people, or people agreeing that they met you on a certain date for to verify the business use of your aircraft, because we're primarily talking about business aviation here, collect it in real time, timestamp it, do it with your emails. Now, I'm going to give you, in the future, I'm going to give you lots of things, lots of advice about how to use words that are in these emails. But the thing that you need to remember is that taxing agencies are going to begin to require that you provide contemporaneous documentation. Aero and Marine has always provided quality control of a client's documents, and they've always been done in a contemporaneous manner, which means that we collect the documentation from you, and currently we're doing it on a monthly basis, okay? If we have to tick that up to daily, we'll do it that way. Whatever the taxing agency requires to get through their audit process. We have always been focused on doing just one thing: California use tax, transactions taxes. So whenever an aircraft owner has been attacked by the state of California for their use taxes, we provide a service where we tell them what to collect, and then every month we have them email the copies of all of their documentation to us so that we provide a quality control process of it. We look at the aircraft logs. And you may ask, why look at aircraft logs? They're just, you know, I can just take pictures of it. I'll tell you why you can't do that. Because typically, because the aircraft logs are not quality controlled by anyone in the past, you don't care whether the airport designators are correct, whether they match up with your fuel receipts or not. So what we do is you send us a copy of your logs, and then I have one of my internal consultants input all that stuff into an Excel spreadsheet. I had a guy complain about that. I could save so much money if you'd just let me do that. No, because you'll duplicate the mistakes. Okay, we're quality controlling it. We're acting just like the tax agency. We're going to pick through it and look for a reason to make your event taxable. But instead, we let you know where the mistakes are. So you have an opportunity. It's just math, but we have an opportunity for you to fix that. So we look at the airport designators. We also look at your flight durations for each flight, because it's not uncommon that they don't match. If you take an hour and a half to fly someplace, and then you fly back and it only takes you a half hour, a tax auditor who has no reality of headwinds and that kind of stuff is going to question that. So we look at that and we ask you about it. Oh, I just wrote down the wrong numbers is generally the answer. Or I ran into such a headwind that I really wasn't moving. Okay, but make notes of that. We need that. The tax agencies are going to start to ask for it. That kind of stuff. And then we also match up all of your fuel receipts with all of your landings. An aircraft log is actually an index to a piece of fiction, because there isn't anything to stop you from sitting down and writing up the aircraft log 5 minutes before you turn in the audit. Everyone knows that. You know it. You're smiling when I say that, okay? And it's the only way that you take that index to a piece of fiction and turn it into an index to a work of nonfiction is by providing the fuel receipt, showing that you actually landed. Because when you buy fuel, typically you get a receipt that has a date, a location, and a tail number on it. So that's how you take this aircraft log and you make it real to the tax auditor. So we do that. We check and make sure all those things match up. Secondarily, if you're doing business aviation, we quality control all of your business support. And that's a constantly evolving and changing requirement by any agency, and I guarantee it's going to happen with the IRS too. All right, so we have to quality control that stuff, because people will, if you go back to an earlier article of mine about dry, cryptic, and boring, there's so much social stuff that you put into this. Remember, you need to remember that the guy, the tax auditor who's reviewing your tax package is trying to charge you the tax. So leave all that social stuff out of the emails. George, we met on this day and we talked about this day. Leave out, well, we sat with our wives, we drank cigars, we went hunting moose, we went fishing, because they're looking for reasons to make your event taxable. You have to understand the danger you're in. One viewpoint. And the other viewpoint is the contemporaneous nature. If you have all that stuff being evolved in real time, and emails are time-stamped, whether you recognize that or not, you need to understand all that. Make sure that the stuff meets all of the requirements. So that is what we do. But I also realized that we can do things for people who are not being audited by the state of California for sales and use tax, because it's the same process. So if you're an aircraft owner anywhere who has it required to file an IRS tax return, anywhere, I'm going to say inside the United States, because I don't know of anyone who's filing an income tax return with the U.S. who's not a U.S. resident, but I won't be surprised to find out that it occurs. We'll do the same for you, okay? You send us your aircraft logs, your fuel receipts, and we've already talked about why that stuff needs to be quality controlled. We're kind of like your conscience sitting on your shoulder. We've told you how to do it. What we're going to do is we're going to try to ride along with you, so that goes back to the contemporaneous word, and be able to quality control that stuff in as close to real time as possible, okay? And we're going to look at the logs, make sure that all that documentation makes sense. We're going to look at the fuel receipts, making sure that it matches up with the aircraft logs. We're also going to review your business documentation to make sure that it's pure and clean and matches up to those flights. So it's a pretty simple process. Generally, we can do this in 1 to 2 hours a month, and we use our billing rate, our lowest billing rate for that, so it's not very expensive. And you have to weigh that against, do I want to be ready for the attack? So if you're buying a $20 million jet, and you're writing it off and you're going through all of these things, you want to make sure that you have a plan on how to deal with it. And that goes back to the contemporaneous. My thoughts are, at this point, if you prove to the board, to the IRS, that you're doing a good job of recording all of this stuff and keeping track of it, you stand a pretty good chance of surviving your audits. I've talked to a couple of people, aviation attorneys, recently, and asked them, are many people being audited on this business and entertainment disallowance that it came into existence in, I think it was a Jobs Creation Act of 2005. And they said quite a few. How many of the audits are being found not in the taxpayer's favor? And the estimation almost flabbergasted me. Almost half of these people, they're getting all or most of their aircraft deductions disallowed because they don't know how to properly fill out all this paperwork. So we can, if you want us, set up a system for you to track the proper documents for that. That'll be a little bit of work. We'll send you some forms that you have to fill out on a flight-by-flight basis, and you can decide right now not to do that, but I guarantee you that when you get audited, you wish you had.